Great pleasure now to bring on board Mr. Vallabh Bhanshali. Mr. Bhanshali, on behalf of everyone from ET Now, thank you for joining us. You've been a big supporter of the channel. You've always accommodated our interview request, and we're really grateful to that you've supported ET Now in its journey.
My best wishes and compliments for this amazing journey that you have achieved. Business space is not an easy space. You have marked and created a name for yourself, space for yourself, and I'm very happy to be joining you on this day.
Let's talk about the rate of change with you, but there's one thing which has not changed. So 14 years ago, Vallabh Bhanshali used to look the same, he still looks the same. What is the secret you're going to tell us today?
Change is the constant life. So
No, I wish I could take out a 14-year-old picture.
The elixir is actually Vipassana. You know, the calm that Mr. Bhanshali you have on your face, we all envy that.
Well, do Vipassana, might help.
No, I must admit
Vipassana,
and I must...
10 days.
I must acknowledge and I'm grateful to Mr. Bhanshali. He did introduce me to Vipassana, and it's a rare day that I missed the 10 minutes after the morning show, Anapan. So that is something I'm truly grateful to. It's a wonderful practice which is really helping me, and I'm sure it will help millions of people going forward.
Indeed, I think Vipassana will be very big. This is not our main discussion, but Vipassana is basically to see the reality as it is. As the world becomes more scientific, this is going to become more and more accepted. So I feel pretty happy about the world. It doesn't matter how grim the situation looks, it is heading in the right direction. A lot of people are heading in the right direction. So I see good days ahead for the world.
India is enjoying a premium positioning like never before, both in terms of political stability, business appeal, ease of doing business, and also in terms of the earnings as well as flows. Do you think from a market standpoint, there is too much of good news, and when there is too much of good news, investors never get bargains?
So I would say that yes and no, that there are ways and ways at looking at countries. India is now a very significant country. Say, for example, why should US dollar be as strong as it has been? Now, it's not in their balance sheet. The balance sheet seems broken, etc. But there were a lot of things that were happening behind the country and behind the dollar, and continue to happen, that surprises the world of dollar's strength. I think something similar is happening in India, which many people are not able to grasp. That there aren't many countries, and I've spoken about that, so I won't repeat, where we have the three balance sheets all aligned, all healthy. That I call only solvency. But if I were to look at a country in a more structural, more complete manner, then I would also, what is the sovereignty of the country? Now, we know that we have not always been a very sovereign power, and how in the last 30 years we've been more assertive about it, and last 25 years about it. But the sovereignty status of India today is unprecedented. The solvency status of India is unprecedented. Two other areas that are emerging, and they, as I hope they will build out the way I expect. The third one is what I call confidence, self-confidence. People from around the world go to the US and they feel we will be able to thrive here. The average Indian's confidence that, oh, he or she can thrive here is growing, but still not where it should be. But it is coming out of centuries of loss of self-confidence that, oh, we can do. So we thought small. Today's youngsters are not thinking small. The country is not thinking small. When some of our ministers speak about what they're doing, so this self-confidence is poised to go up massively if, the current environment that we are in continues, is my expectation. So what you see in IPCA, IPL, or what you see in the sports arena, all that is rising confidence manifesting in so many areas. The last, of course, where we have seen a lot of work is productivity. So productivity in terms of at policy making level itself, what policies were aligned to productivity, which meant you had respect for the country, that you could make this country productive and not just be an arbitrator, not just be the body shop or an iron ore exporter. From there to think of value addition, and I walked that journey with Mr. Narayan Murthy at Infosys, that how to think of value addition. So I think that whole value addition confidence is going to come in this country. And the last is productivity. That productivity, policy making productivity has started to happen, that we're seeing great policy reforms because they could not be undertaken unless you believed in the country. So this belief in the country has led to policy making, but we need that productivity in policy implementation. We need that productivity in labor. We need that productivity in judiciary, everywhere else. That's when once that productivity engine all around fires, this country is going to be a very different country. So there are forces in the world, those who are taking 20, 30-year views, they are seeing very, very good hope on a very different balance sheet, which is not very visible to everyone. And that is part of the answer why India premium rating does not go down. We all know that market prices are not low, etc., earning multiples are not low, but I don't see them go down as long as this confidence and productivity graphs keep going up.
Mr. Bhanshali, just a coincidence that today's ET Now's 14th anniversary, we have you on the show, and Nifty is 50 points away from an all-time high. The ring of an all-time high, sir, is something which we always like. But 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when we will look at ET Now's 14th anniversary and probability of a new all-time high on the market, do you think that will just be a pit stop? This market has many, many more milestones to go.
We've seen that, Nikunj. I have seen it a little more than you, that how, when the market became 400 points, if you were excited about it, 600, you were excited. So the market has always created new milestones. If you just look at earnings that are adding up now, the solvency of the companies, Indian corporate sector outside the infrastructure today is debt-free. And the banks are coming up with these large profits. What is going to happen? All this money will go into production and all. So once you're going to have larger investments, profits will follow. And profits will follow with the multiples, prices will follow. So I have just no doubt, it is absolutely mathematical, inevitable that we are going to have, They may take 1 or 2 years more or less, etc. The world is a complex place. India is also a very complex country. So that besides, otherwise we are headed up and up.
How much importance would you pay to the political election cycle? Exactly a year from now, that in a sense would occupy the center stage. So what's looking good today, could it take a back seat because of pure political compulsions?
So as I said, that productivity of policy making has been the big change. And then policy implementation, we decided to do GST, we implemented GST, etc. So that is very, very vital. So at this point of time, while we are trying to raise productivity across segments, if we become slow on policy making, then I think we are in trouble. So I do not know about which political dispensation, but to me, what is critical is that not only the trajectory and the direction, but the trajectory of policy making changes is continuous. That is important. And so I've given the mathematics of it. If any of the factors changes, the product will change.
I have to ask you about this. You've been an observer of IT and tech from eons, right? And I don't mean to hint at your age, but you've been one of the first investors in Infosys and a very, very keen observer. Look what's happening out there, especially now with generative artificial intelligence and the whole world now moving towards that. What are you making of how Indian IT can capture this moment?
So these are shift changes that take place in technology from time to time, from times immemorial, from the fire, the wheel, to metals, etc., etc. And every time that shift happens, we are paralyzed or we are overexcited. Either it's a South Sea bubble or a paralysis of the kind that we see in some sectors because of GPT. But the artificial intelligence has been at work in technology companies for a while. It has now just hit the public imagination. And therefore, every shift change in technology creates an opportunity for those who are integrators, who have to integrate the old with the new. And every time the shift changes happen, there are people who lag behind, like in the skills, just as you see in the labor market, that those who cannot upskill, they fall behind. So also in technology companies who are not poised to upskill quickly, they will probably lag behind. But those who can upskill, they will benefit from new technology. New technology always creates unimagined new applications. And new applications will mean the necessity for new integration of old and new, creation of new and business advantages and all. So we have seen this cycle play out. When we took Infosys public, that time it was still the mainframe world. The IPO talked about mainframe, and even while the IPO happened, soon the world moved to PC. There's a big shift. But the big shift has only meant that if the company did well, that we had Y2K and we had the internet boom and Web 2 and Web 3 and so many technologies have come. So I think from a long-term point of view, well, yes, this is an aberration. The slowness in the market in the US, that was a major driver for the company rather than ChatGPT or artificial intelligence. I think artificial intelligence, big companies will be fine.
You mean big Indian IT companies as well, sir?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Particularly those who are technology service providers, they will soon find a way to use artificial intelligence to make it a part of their work process, and new products will get created at the front end. So typically we find finance, retail, these companies are very quick adopters of technology, and they convert it into a business advantage. And for that business advantage, they are very happy coming to those who will deliver those solutions very quickly. And it'll be the same big companies, TCS, Infosys, etc.
Mr. Bhanshali, just a corollary to that. Of course, the OG of startups was Infosys, but what about the startups that we are seeing right now? Because it's gone divergent moves. A few of them have gone kaput, but there are likes of Zomato, etc., which are doing quite well. What's your take on the new startups that you are seeing right now in the system?
Well, I mean, I'm not savvy about consumer space. So therefore, startups which have caught the imagination of people are more on the consumer space. But there are many other spaces where startups have happened, which are, more back office, technology at the back, which we can't see. There are emerging areas like in drones, in agriculture, etc., etc. So I think there are a lot of startups who may find funding a little slow, but who are doing well. India's startup ecosystem has not slowed down, which were consumer facing and where typically one phenomenon of buying the market was there. Funding for buying the market by spending high amounts and crazy amounts, that part is seeing the greatest slowdown. The rest is fine. And these are slowdowns that happen in all sectors. So it's a healthy slowdown for the startup culture also. But every day we see very interesting startups is still coming to market, is still trying to raise funds. So I see, which happens in all funding markets, we have a cyclical turn, and this is a cyclical turn. I see already private equity funds sitting on larger funds and their investors demanding, when will you put money to use? So I see that drought ending soon.
Mr. Bhanshali, every time the market follows a cycle, and you have always explained this to us. How do you think this market cycle, which in a sense started post the COVID adjustment, will be different from the previous cycles?
So these are like waves in a sea. We can't really distinguish between that, this is first wave, second wave, third wave, but the wave merges with, under the surface. So I think, yes, what you mentioned about COVID and, COVID overcorrection, etc., that's all correct. But I think the two big trends in the world, one was the Ukraine war related and the China related, the sanctions related business. And second was correcting the inflation threat. And therefore the US turning off the money tap was the biggest trend that is affecting all markets and all fund flows, etc., etc. And the post-China, post-Ukraine world where geopolitics is redefining the supply chains. So those are two very, very big factors that the world is dealing with. India has been caught in the crossfire. So far, we have landed on our feet with Russian oil and asserting our sovereignty. So I see those are the two more important factors than COVID and other things, etc. As far as India is concerned, it has already established its value as a regulator, as being now we are ahead of the curve or along the curve. We are not behind the curve in any manner now, whether from a growth point of view or inflation point of view. And Mr. Shaktikant Das, being nominated as the best governor in the world is a reflection of how India has navigated all these changes well. And that's the point for me. So the markets are pretty smart. I don't see any area where the market is not, any area that the market should have looked at and has not. So market is pretty efficient just now.
Mr. Bhanshali, there seems to be this Apple moment in India. When Maruti came to India, auto sector got created. When GE came to India, the entire IT sector got created. Now Apple has come to India, manufacturing is moving to India. So do you think if somebody is looking at a mega trend for next 3 to 5 years, like we say, the big profit pool in India, while consumer and IT would be incrementally growing, banks are cyclical in nature, the real booster for the economy would come from, let's say, the manufacturing sector. What is small today could become giant?
So clearly, today's newspaper, Economic Times, talking about Foxconn looking at India seriously and making it a hub for electric vehicles, two-wheelers particularly. Now that is just echoing what you just said. That once the infrastructure is built, once the policy is clearer, the speed of money, for example, in this country now obviously is the highest anywhere in the world. So as these speeds build up, we were far behind in manufacturing to have ambition that we can be a global force without correcting all these things. So once the corridors open up, the road infrastructure is already becoming fantastic, and the now the whole push on Gati Shakti, the logistics cost. Once that 3 to 4% correction I expect to happen, is already partially happen in next couple of years to go below 10%. I think we will have a right to ask for manufacturing, space, manufacturing, should I say, supply status. Until then, it was not expected. But now it is inevitable, I think. So it's going to happen. It's happening in cars already, in mobile phones. It's going to happen in two-wheelers. So you're going to see it across. I had just little doubt about it. The manufacturing boom is coming.
Wrap it up with one final question, Mr. Bhanshali. We've been asking all our experts that in next 4 to 5 years, what do you think there is a probability and a possibility of Sensex touching 1 lakh? Yes, sir, 1 lakh. That's the finger. 1 lakh is what the mark we're looking at.
I really am not oriented to think in that simplistic manner, Nikunj. But I have said that I think if you see logic, just as housing construction happens, then we see other goods follow. So now when infrastructure and policy making follow, the banks have already come out of their difficult times. You're going to see manufacturing come out of difficult time. You're going to see liquidity-starved industries like IT and others, etc., come out. And that winners will always come from, bottom-up fishing. And so I will not give an answer more than the rounded one I gave.
Mr. Bhanshali, such a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much for taking time out for us.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
All the very.
Thank you so much.